Right, so we've seen the progress the legacy autos have been making with their EVs. We've heard the likes of Rivian's targets, and now we have a better grasp of what the Chinese are all up to. All in all, I'm disappointed. This is not looking like a quick progress to transition to sustainable energy. I mean, it's a big mission, replacing 2 billion vehicles in the world. We've barely scratched the surface. We aren't even at 1% yet. Of course, this is all moving exponentially, which is what is necessary, but there is a long way to go. And of course, it's not like we just make 2 billion vehicles and replace the old ones. It happens gradually, replacing the new vehicle purchases with electric. But it's really starting to feel like there is only one real contender. I know we hear about the Chinese ramping up so much, but most of these vehicles aren't substituting other ICE cars. They're more likely substituting the likes of bicycles as a form of transportation due to how cheap they are. We need to be making substitutes for the main ICE vehicles, the likes of Toyotas, Volkswagens, Fords and Mercedes. So far, there really only appears to be one contender left to make this mission happen: Tesla. I know Elon says he wants competition and he does what he can to help them, but perhaps it's simply not enough. Granted, the way the Chinese are manufacturing their EVs, their domestic production may be enough to cover themselves, as they do not have as high standards there, and appear to be more accepting of lower range vehicles, and maybe some other nations too. But in the remaining nations, well, let's face it, it's only going to be Tesla. For the US domestic legacy auto, if everything goes according to plan, by perhaps 2025, there may be a contribution of 2 million EVs a year. Combine that with non-US legacy auto EVs, like Volkswagen or Mercedes, there may be another million, and at a stretch, perhaps another million from the Chinese entering the US. Tesla could be up to 5 million a year for the US by then. Rivian, by the sounds of it, may be at 100,000 or so, perhaps, but I don't know if they could even sell 100,000 of their vehicles a year. The old Tesla Model S and X at their peak were about that, when there was no competition. Oh right, what am I talking about? Rivian's a van company. Perhaps they can make some vans. Alright, so maybe all of those combined mean that we are at 2/3 of the US vehicles being electric by around 2025, maybe 2026, and possibly supplemented with some plug-in hybrids from the legacy autos, accompanied with an enormous charging network. And that possibly ends ICE. Not just because of consumer demand, but likely ICE can no longer be made economically. ICE would have also ended much earlier than this, which I've mentioned in the past, creating a period of short supply of new vehicles. But who is going to make up the next 1/3 of electric cars to potentially replace the plug-ins? Well, it likely will remain somewhere in that proportion, probably about 2/3 Tesla. And highly likely Tesla will maintain that market share globally, or perhaps somewhat skewed by the sheer quantity of China's domestic sales. But all in all, probably mainly Tesla. Not only that, Tesla are likely taking an even higher proportion of that in revenue. And not only that, they will probably take a far significantly higher proportion of that in profit, if the others can even make a profit, just like Apple does with their phones, which is why they are so much bigger than all the other phone companies. But the thing is, unlike Apple, Tesla are making their cars for about 1/3 the cost of the next competitor. And that would be if said competitor could even deliver as much range and performance as Tesla. Tesla could take 90% of the market share of profit from the EV business. And I'm not even including FSD, solely their EV sales. I'm also not talking about robotaxis. Oh right, robotaxis. We forgot robotaxis. Well, perhaps that's what will account for the remainder of the EV gap to fill. Perhaps if we include that, then we might not need anywhere near as many auto sales in the US anyway. Perhaps by 2025, we aren't even that far off, at least in the US, and possibly not too dissimilar to some of the other nations. Sure, in the past, the US has generally led the way, but perhaps some of the other nations are only a few years behind. Perhaps the reality is that maybe by 2030, we might truly be emission-free, at least with new car sales. Sorry, Ford and GM, your 50% EV target for 2030, well, it's not up to you. There are two other things at play, called competition and consumer buyer behavior. They don't want your smelly old ICE anymore. The lack of economies of scale just might mean ICE supply actually falls faster than the demand that even remains. And this is a potential issue, but I think we can get around it. The other related issue is gas stations and the price of gas, which may make the existing ICE fleet that remain, well, it will become considerably more expensive to be running on gas, and then there will be fewer gas stations, making it more inconvenient to have to fill up. But I think this might be what the robotaxis are for. There may be some stage within time where it makes no sense to feasibly own an ICE car anymore. Yet, these vehicle owners cannot afford a new EV, and used EVs have also held their value. Not only that, they're simply fed up of having to drive themselves like some Neanderthal when everyone else gets to watch Netflix, to and from their destination. Oh, and their destination takes literally 10 times longer to reach because their ICE cars are not allowed through boring tunnels. And eventually they quit. They give up on ICE ownership and go for robotaxis only. And yes, maybe one day they'll be able to afford a used Tesla, but I'm sure a lot of people will simply opt for robotaxis in lieu of car ownership, which all makes perfect sense and aligns pretty much spot on with Tesla's business plan. By 2030, there'll be an abundant supply of robotaxis. They'll be ubiquitous and a lower cost of ownership than an ICE vehicle. If complemented with boring tunnels, then they could replace the need for a lot of vehicles. Think about it. The ICE industry will collapse, but the EV industry cannot support the growth of ICE vehicles fast enough. Robotaxis will be an inevitable solution, and forget about Waymo or GM's Cruise. They'll not be safe enough, convenient enough, fast enough, or luxurious enough. But as far as EVs are concerned, like I say, it's going to be about battery production. And no one else has batteries that can be ramped up to the speed of Tesla, not even close. No one else has as much capital as Tesla to do this. No one else has engineers incentivized as Tesla to do this. Many of them now millionaires from their Tesla options, which make them impossible to poach from Tesla by offering higher pay. And no one else has a mission as important as Tesla to somewhat save the world, compared to just make higher profits. Smart people aren't as interested in just getting higher pay. They want to be challenged, they want a focus, they want resources, and they want to be working on a bigger picture. Tesla offers all of them this, and that's where the best talent wants to go anyway. Tesla puts on events to attract even more talent too. The likes of Battery Day and AI Day were not targeted at shareholders. I mean, it went over most people's heads, but the engineers who did understand what Tesla was talking about realized what Tesla was achieving, things that they may have not even thought were going to be possible, but yet Tesla has, which is highly encouraging and motivating for these engineers to go and work on and be a part of, compared to whatever they were working on previously. CATL is the largest battery manufacturer. Tesla are their biggest customer. Then LG and Panasonic are the next largest. Tesla is their biggest customer. Then BYD at 7%. BYD are making their own batteries for their own cars. Well, they'll also help Toyota too. Tesla doesn't even enter the top 10 EV battery makers yet, but they will obliterate them all and possibly take the number one lead by about 2025, whilst also consuming a large amount of batteries from the second, third and fourth largest battery manufacturers. Surely Tesla are going to have about 75% of the global battery supply by around 2025. The other 25% to be distributed between the Chinese, the EV startups and the legacy autos attempts. You see what I mean? There's no one else coming to save the day. It's all up to Tesla. Everyone else combined only add up to 1/3 what Tesla will have. Granted, the Chinese make cars with small batteries and they make more EVs in quantity as a result. But like I say, they only really serve the Chinese domestic market. It all comes down to Tesla and their battery production. And Tesla's battery production will also increase more exponentially than everyone else's. Added to that, a Tesla robotaxi might serve the same market size as 10 typical EVs. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.